The ground of Rome trembles. The echo of enemy drums reverberates like thunder, while inside the walls citizens run, fear stamped across their faces. The city that once seemed eternal, that ruled seas and continents, now hangs by a thread, about to be erased from history. And all in just 3 days. Imagine marble columns cracking, the Senate in panic, the eagles of the legions fallen in the mud. Rome, which for centuries imposed order and power, now discovers its fragility before an enemy, striking with ferocity and intelligence. This is the moment when glory and ruin collide, the greatest power of the ancient world on the verge of collapsing before the astonished eyes of its own citizens. What could destroy such a vast empire in so little time? That is the story we are about to unveil, a forgotten war, intense and brutal, that nearly wiped Rome out in just 3 days. Before we dive into this dark revelation of history, I must ask you something important. If this opening has already captured your attention, imagine what is still to come. Like this video now and subscribe to the channel, because only then will you ensure you won't miss the next hidden chapters of Rome's history. Secrets almost no one knows, capable of changing the way you see the past. Also, leave your comment. What do you think was the greatest enemy Rome ever faced? Your opinion may appear in the next video. Join our legion of history lovers, and together we will unearth truths buried for centuries. Before the imminent collapse, Rome seemed unshakable. Legions marched with perfect discipline, shields gleaming in the sun like a moving sea of iron. Roads cut across continents, linking distant provinces to the empire's heart. Egypt's grain fed the masses, Spain's gold filled the coffers, and spices from the east perfumed elite banquets. The Senate displayed its pomp, convinced no human force could shake the order built over centuries of conquests. Markets bustled with voices in dozens of languages, merchants offering wine, oil, and silk. At sunset, temples glowed with torches, dedicated to gods who supposedly guaranteed the city's eternity. Rome was seen not just as a military power, but as the axis of civilization. No enemy seemed capable of challenging such greatness, and yet 3 days were enough to shatter that image of invincibility. The clash between glory and ruin was about to reveal how fragile Rome's eternity truly was. Fragile as glass, before the fire of war. Behind the glow of statues and military victories, Rome was already beginning to bleed internally. The grain supply from Egypt and Africa grew increasingly vulnerable to pirate raids and enemy attacks along sea routes. In the markets, the price of bread soared, and the once proud people murmured in revolt. To sustain legions spread across ever-expanding frontiers, the state raised merciless taxes, crushing small farmers and merchants. The Roman coin, the denarius, suffered devaluation. Gold and silver were mixed with lesser metals, and every transaction revealed the empire's waning trust. Taverns echoed with complaints, soldiers grumbled over late pay, and the luxury of the elite clashed with hunger in the streets. Rome still appeared solid on the outside, but its economy was a cracked vessel, ready to shatter at the slightest impact. When war came, this internal wear became a fatal weakness. The greatness sustained by conquest blood and tribute gold began to crumble under the weight of its own greed. While the people suffered hunger and taxes, Rome's elites fought their own battles for power. Senators plotted in shadowed halls, generals conspired against colleagues, and political coups were as common as triumphal parades. The army, meant to be the pillar of order, was divided. Legions swore loyalty more to their commanders than to the empire itself. On the borders, Germanic tribes, Parthians, and others prowled, testing Rome's already fragile walls. Each provincial revolt, each assassination in the Senate, each general proclaiming himself emperor, eroded the belief that Rome was indestructible. Internal disorder opened doors to external enemies. When war erupted, Rome did not present itself as a united wall, but as a mosaic of broken interests, internal rivalries, and vulnerable frontiers. The city that once ruled the world now struggled to rule itself. This political and military poison made crisis inevitable. It only took a single precise blow to shake the entire structure. The enemy did not wait. While Rome still digested its divisions and weaknesses, the attack came with brutal speed. In just 3 days, entire legions were crushed in ambushes. Roman columns cut apart in valleys and forests turned into deadly traps. Roads, once symbols of order, became paths of despair, covered with corpses and fallen standards. Frontier cities burned, temples were looted, and desperate messages reached the Senate. Rome is in danger. In the capitals, panic spread. Gates were hurriedly locked, families fled carrying what they could, while rumors claimed the enemy was already marching toward the eternal city's walls. The empire, once eternal, now wavered like a flame about to be extinguished. In only 3 days, Rome tasted the bitter flavor of vulnerability, and for the first time, the idea of its fall was not a delusion, but a real threat. Inside Rome, grandeur dissolved into silence, broken only by whispers of fear. Streets once full of vendors and children's laughter now echoed hurried footsteps, doors slamming and windows shutting. In the Senate, men in white togas trembled, arguing with quivering voices, unable to decide between fighting or negotiating. Crowds gathered in squares, shouting for bread, for safety, for a miracle. Some cried out to the gods, others spoke of betrayal and surrender. The Tiber reflected vigil torches while rumors spread faster than soldiers. The enemy has crossed the borders. The legions are destroyed. Rome will not hold. The air smelled of fear, incense smoke, and the sweat of anxious masses. For the first time in centuries, Romans felt they no longer controlled their own destiny. The eternal city, pride of the world, seemed a sand fortress before a tide advancing without mercy. The capital was no longer the heart of victory, but a field of uncertainty where even the most powerful feared for survival. When all seemed lost, a spark of hope arose. Amidst the chaos, a bold commander emerged, rallying the remaining legions with fiery speeches and promises of victory. He lacked numbers, but had strategy and courage. He moved troops across terrain with cunning, using hills, forests, and even the river itself to turn geography into Rome's ally. Messengers ran through the night, and citizens, once paralyzed by fear, united to reinforce walls, forge weapons, and support soldiers. The enemy, too confident in a swift triumph, made fatal mistakes, advancing in scattered columns, underestimating final resistance. And in that space, Rome breathed again. Against all odds, the city withstood the initial assault. The enemy momentarily retreated, surprised to find life in what it believed was a corpse. Rome had not won, but it had escaped imminent death, and that was enough to reignite hope's flame. By a thread, the eternal city survived the abyss. Resistance saved Rome, but the city and its empire paid a steep price. Roads were strewn with corpses, many left unburied. Entire provinces were devastated, fertile fields reduced to ash, villages wiped from the map. Surviving legions returned mutilated, men scarred not only in body, but in soul. In the squares, widows wept for husbands who would never return. Children waited for fathers lost in the war's dust. The Senate counted losses in gold and lands, but the true cost could not be measured in coins. It was the lasting fear that this could happen again. Rome's arrogance had been shattered. The city that once believed in its own eternity now knew it could bleed. This shock of reality shaped not only politics and the army, but also the collective memory of a people who, for 3 days, felt the weight of the end upon them. Rome survived, but it would never be the same. The war that nearly destroyed Rome in just 3 days left more than ruins and mourning. It exposed before the world that even the mightiest empire on earth had dangerous cracks. Rome learned the lesson. It reinforced borders, restructured its army, and tried to restore the people's trust. But the scars remained. The myth of invincibility was broken. Every citizen began to look toward the horizon with suspicion, remembering that eternity could be lost in days. Yet, from this trauma also came new strength, the awareness that survival depended not only on external conquest, but on internal unity. This episode shaped future generations, reminding senators, generals, and the people themselves that Rome would endure only if it confronted not just enemies outside, but also the ghosts within. In the end, Rome survived, but it never forgot. The legacy of this crisis was a warning carved into the stone of history. No greatness is immune to ruin. Rome endured, but the memory of those 3 days never faded. The empire that ruled seas and continents discovered that even the greatest of powers could collapse within hours. It was a warning to history, an eternal scar. Glory is fragile, and power fleeting. Rome survived by a thread, but the question remains, for how long? This episode reminds us that no civilization is safe when arrogance surpasses vigilance. And now, I want to hear from you. Which moment do you believe was the most decisive in this war? Leave your comment and share your opinion, because every perspective enriches this journey through history. If this story moved you, like the video and strengthen our work so that more people can discover secrets like this. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate the bell. Together, we will reveal the mysteries and hidden truths of ancient Rome. 3 days nearly destroyed an empire that called itself eternal.